Presenting on behalf of Binur Zelenov from the National Bank of Kazakhstan. I'm the chief advisor to the chairman, Binur, who's actually the deputy governor at the National Bank. And I've been working on this project for a number of years, together with a wider team, a very assorted background, so I can explain more over drinks later. But the actual project itself has been running for a number of years. And here we just want to talk about sort of the project and some of the innovation and the developments over the last couple of years. So this is from the chairman himself. I asked him to record it. He can't be here in person, so I'm going to play it. Fancy dome in the background, so get that. Yeah. Audio? Do we have audio? Okay. Hold on. Let me back up. Okay, let's try that again. No.
We try it later.
Can I put it up here and maybe through the microphone, or?
Oversee the entire digital transformation program
Let me
in Kazakhstan. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to electronically meet you. My name is Binur Zelenov. I am a Chief Digital Officer of the National Bank of Kazakhstan. So I oversee the entire digital transformation program in Kazakhstan, the important part of which is development of national digital financial infrastructure. One of the integral components of the national digital financial infrastructure in Kazakhstan is central bank digital currency, the Digital Tenge. So our journey is quite interesting. We started the project in 2021. We launched the proof of concept platform. And then we moved forward to the pilot with limited number of users in 2022. And in the end of 2022, we made a decision to actually launch the Digital Tenge and introduced the phased implementation approach. So starting from 2023, we are in production mode. At the moment, we already have around 250 billion worth of Digital Tenge in circulation. The key use cases are related to transparent public spending. We use programmability of Digital Tenge to enhance transparency of public procurement, government subsidies, and other types of public spending. We also, this year, are going to develop the DeFi component of Digital Tenge. Namely, we are about to issue CBDC-backed stablecoin in the economy, and this stablecoin will be then published at centralized exchanges, and we would effectively enable a bridge between traditional financial infrastructure and decentralized finance. I do believe that in Kazakhstan we developed very interesting approaches for CBDC implementation, and I believe we have something to share. And today John will share the specific details. I also will have my contacts somewhere here, so if you guys are interested, we always be happy to talk. Thank you, and you have a good day.
Or the drinks later on. For just a couple of introductions, in terms of the project itself, this was also driven by a lot of the innovation that is happening around the world, and we looked at a number of things in terms of initiatives that are happening, both cross-border initiatives, retail projects, wholesale projects, commercial activities around this. And one of the things that became obvious was, there's a lot of R&D projects that are going on, but also a lot of pilots, a lot of people piloting and testing things out and so on. We looked at reports from various entities. This is a summary of the things that are happening in Asia and the Middle East. So not so much in Europe and North America, but in terms of Asia and the Middle East, where is Kazakhstan in the grand scheme of things? Actually, very advanced, I would say, just in terms of, I'm not biased in any way, but my experience there, being there, and also with my colleague Vince, who's sitting in the back, who's also worked on this project extensively. Have been very impressed with the amount of digital innovation that's been going on, and driven as well by a lot of the initiatives around the digital money and the digital asset side of things. So this is just a summary from various reports, tells you a little bit about where Kazakhstan fits into all of the innovation topic. And what I was very surprised when I started working there is that most people didn't even know where Kazakhstan was, including myself. So actually, when I started going through this, it became very apparent that there's a lot of things that are happening in other parts of the world that we're not aware of. Digital Tenge is a third format of payment in addition to cash and non-cash payments. And this is a very important thing because it sort of combines all of the properties of cash and online and basically digital forms of payment to enable new functionality that wasn't there before. And you'd ask, well, why do you need that? I mean, in the end, is there a reason for having this? And one of the original reasons, when I remember sitting with Benur at the very beginning of this project, one of the key reasons why they wanted to initiate this project was actually because of government payments to and state-funded payments to large corporations that are building sort of stuff in Kazakhstan, and they wanted to have a degree of transparency in the economy as to where public funds were going. And then the project basically pivoted as well into retail stuff, consumer-oriented retail payments, and we'll cover a number of those things in the presentation. So interesting in terms of what's driving the innovation that's behind this. Things like, and then very important topics, anonymity is a very important topic on the retail side, less so on the corporate side or the government public spending side of things, but again, important topics. They won't replace existing payment instruments. It's not the intention to just basically replace those, but to complement it and to enable new types of innovation. As Benur was mentioning, even this year, the kind of things that we're looking to do is to sort of expand this into wider types of capabilities in the marketplace with the stable coins and commercial bank money tokens and so on to enable the marketplace to be more efficient and provide more services. So those are the kind of things that we've been looking at as well. There's a few things to mention, I think, in terms of this. People sort of at the beginning of the project had a lot of concerns around anonymity and privacy from an end user perspective, and this is top of mind from a consumer-oriented point of view. Very important point because this was something that people would, in terms of user acceptance in the marketplace, you need to make sure that you address this topic. And from very early on, it was by design, and things that were implemented were sort of taken from an anonymity and privacy perspective at the design level, at the very core. So there's a controllable degree of anonymity from an end user. I can basically, when I'm making a payment to you, for instance, I can control the amount of information that I share with you as a consumer. Different at higher levels of sort of government to sort of corporate payments, but at the consumer level, it is a controllable degree of anonymity, which is actually very interesting in terms of how, from a user acceptance perspective. Those are the kind of things that we sort of looked at as part of it, and obviously important to enable a lot of things in the market. As also Benur mentioned, in 2023, it was launched in a limited production mode. And it had a card scenario. So we worked together with card schemes and banks to make this more accessible to the marketplace. And there was an R&D environment where a lot of experiments were done, including cross-border payment projects, mBridge, and so on. We'll talk a little bit about that. And those two things complemented each other very well because it allowed an industrial or production grade sort of rollout of the solution, and at the same time, a lot of experimentation as well. So I want to pause here for a second because I think this is the first time we've ever seen this kind of implementation in the marketplace, especially with card schemes and banks and so on. It was the first one that we know of. I mean, I haven't seen anything else out there that allowed, first project that allowed sort of the integration of the Digital Tenge into commercial banks. So at the beginning, these are sort of custodial wallets, so they're held by the commercial banks. So they're the ones that are holding the Digital Tenge. The view is that eventually these will become self-custody, but initially it was custodial wallets by the commercial banks. And we worked together with the card schemes, both Visa and MasterCard, and these four commercial banks at the very beginning of the project when it was launched in production, to be able to implement it and to roll it out. This meant that users can access their Digital Tenge right from their card interfaces and banking apps and things like that, and it made it much more accessible, also acceptable as well from the banks. So the resistance was initially there was a bit of it, but at the end it was very much well accepted by the banks that participated in this. And those were the banks that that started at the very beginning, and now the rollout is to expand that out into the wider market. Part of the reason to do this as well was to make the marketplace a little bit more equal. In Kazakhstan, there are it's a duopoly basically, two major players that control the majority of the market, and very advanced and very innovative from a digital innovation perspective, but lacked, the wider marketplace lacked that kind of stimulus or the ability, the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure that allowed them to be competitive as well. So this would create more competition in the marketplace for the other tail of other banks that are not sort of as advanced as those two. So it created an element of that. And these cards are in production, they're live, they're real. People, it's real money. I have one here. It's real money on this. And it's basically allows you to spend digital tenge right from the card, and it could be a Visa. It's a Visa card, so it will work anywhere. Very innovative, very different than other implementations, but at the same time sort of makes it much more acceptable for end users. Also, there's a wallet app. You can load it up with Apple Pay and Google, Samsung Pay and all these things as well. So you can have it loaded up on your phone. The other interesting thing in terms of the project was the social aspect side of this. Part of this transparency push as well, and reduction of bureaucracy and elimination of corruption, as you can see from this. And you'd think, well, eliminating corruption in child lunches? Well, apparently there is some of that. And the idea was to make sure that every child that had access to state funds, which is all of the children, basically got a lunch paid for by the government. So it's basically very, I guess, much more distributed into the sort of the community. And the idea was to integrate sort of the digital tenge into this thing called an on-a card, which is like a transport card / school card. You know, it had a multifunction card for students and a student ID card. And so that basically everybody had the means of payment at the canteen every day, so that they would not go hungry. And there was a discrepancy between the number of children getting lunches and the amount of money being spent. And this was a great way to eliminate that by providing a level of transparency. And it was a very good, feel-good project, actually, that part of it. The other aspect of the projects that the National Bank of Kazakhstan was working on, and the National Payment Corporation, which is a subsidiary of that, was to work on projects like Project mBridge as observer members, and then also working with the SWIFT and the CBDC connector as part of that project to experiment and to try out different things with regards to cross-border activities and integrate Kazakhstan into the wider global marketplace. In addition to that, there were also initiatives around DeFi with Binance and Kaze, which is the main stock exchange in Kazakhstan, to enable both sort of collaboration with Binance and the stock exchange for security settlement, and to enable that in terms of the market for additional capabilities for the market. In addition to that, there was projects around VAT. VAT is a complex topic, if you know about VAT, in terms of final product and VAT that's paid on it, and the merchants that are the companies, the commercial entities that are involved throughout the chain, collecting and dispensing or dispersing VAT and doing it all along the chain is a supply chain is a complex topic. And here it was something that would allow more efficient collection and payment of VAT for all the merchants that were involved in the chain, which actually is it's a time saver and a very good market efficiency play. So that, just to summarize, I think in terms of the new sort of scenarios and functionality, one is around sort of the enhanced tax management around the VAT that I just mentioned, including things like marked tokens. So the things where public spending tokens are marked, and then once they're sent and put into the marketplace, at some point they get sort of unmarked, and then basically are no longer tracked and traced, basically. And I think that's a very clever way to deal with public spending in a more efficient manner, eliminating corruption and things like that. I talked about the DeFi part, and then also the different cross-border payments initiatives. There are many more that Kazakhstan's involved in, but the idea is to basically integrate Kazakhstan into the wider sort of region, but also on a global basis with other markets as well. So what's next? In 2023, we launched the production grade platform. It was limited production grade, and the idea was to then scale it out, which is created more in 2024. The focus was on testing a number of things out and expanding sort of the capability of the production aspect of it. And then this year is to fully launch this and put it into the wider marketplace. Now, if you notice, in terms of the use cases, this project was very use case oriented. We've picked specific narrow use cases and implemented it accordingly in order to be able to make sure that we addressed market concerns, understood sort of the retail, understood commercial, understood sort of the wider sort of implications of this. But the idea is that this is a multi-purpose, general purpose CBDC. It's not a retail or wholesale in terms of application. It's a general purpose one that can be implemented in specific sort of use cases and then launched more broadly, which is what we're doing this year. There's a lot going on. If I explain sort of, what I just showed you is a very quick snapshot of what's been going on in the project. The website has a tremendous amount of material. There's architecture documents to the nth degree. Everything is public. One thing that I've been incredibly encouraged about is the amount of openness about all the project work and all the project material, all the learnings, including the market surveys and everything else that's been done on this initiative. And I encourage you to read the documentation because there's a lot of very detailed reports with a lot of information behind it. And if you're considering sort of all these topics in your CBDC journey, then there's a lot of very valuable material here for you to look at as well. Please, take a snapshot of the Telegram link and then you can have access to all of that, what's coming up as well in terms of new developments. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah. Hard time.
Thank you very much, John. A quick question going back to one of your early slides and the use of Visa and MasterCard.
Yeah.
Does it, I presume your Digital Tenge account has to be pre-funded with Digital Tenge, but if there's a deficit, will it automatically pull money from the commercial bank account?
You can program. This is also the capabilities that the banks would have to program as well. So obviously you can sort of sweep funds from your current account, your savings account, whatever, into the Tenge wallet if you need it. But that's a programming function of the bank. So those are the kind of services the bank could offer. And it would have to be initiated by the client at the end of the day, of course.
Choices in the commercial space, basically.
Sure. You could argue the question, well, what's the point of that, actually, right? And I would, if I were you. But the idea as well is that eventually these things can also, and I really glossed over it very quickly. The idea is that one of the primary reasons for implementing it, at least at the retail level or the consumer level, was to enable things like offline capability behind this, so that you would be able to have basically a self-custody wallet on your card or phone or app or whatever it is, in order to be able to make person-to-person payments using the Digital Tenge. Kazakhstan is a massive country, it's enormous in terms of geography, with a very relatively small population in 3 major cities, and everybody else is geographically dispersed. So telecommunications, network access, all these different things are very complicated in the country, and the ability and sort of payments as well. So getting state benefits to these individuals that are in remote and even nomadic sort of, because they roam around as well, a good portion of the population is nomadic, they have access to sort of the state funds. So how do you do that actually in this case? And this is where you can load up and pay through the wallet, make sort of these payments, and then once you have it, you can then make person-to-person payments even in offline and remote places as well. So that's part of the reason why I didn't mention it, because it's obviously...
So sorry, I have another question then.
Sorry.
For the offline payments, it's really interesting. For the offline payments, what's the reconciliation part at the back end then?
You have to go online at some point, so there has to be some sort of, you have to do that, otherwise you then go out of sync. But the idea is that you enable it in order to be able to have certain amount of transactions that you can perform offline, basically with thresholds and limits, the usual story.
Thank you. I'll catch you later for all the other questions.
Any other questions? In that case, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.